Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. What's going on to all my MCU fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, MovieFiles. Elliot back again with a brand new review, and today we're breaking down the 29th film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the 4th film within this franchise. We're talking Thor, Love and Thunder, a film I got the chance to check out early in IMAX, and I'm so excited to talk about this film in this spoiler-free review. Before we get into the discussion, if you all enjoy this type of content, well, make sure you're following me on Instagram as well as on TikTok if you're new to the channel. And if you all love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live discussions, well, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, make sure you're sharing it. But more importantly, once you've seen the film, let's talk about it from your pros, cons, favorite new characters, favorite returning characters, what worked, what didn't work. And as MCU fans, we got to talk about our rankings. So where does this film rank amongst the other 3 Thor movies? And of course, as far as the other 28 MCU films, where does Thor, Love and Thunder rank on your list? I'm going to share mine at the end of this video, so stick around for that. But let's talk about that in the comments. It's so funny because if you would have asked me 10 years ago, Elliot, out of the trinity of the characters, I'm talking Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, who would have been the first character in the MCU to get their 4th solo film? Thor was last on that list, but hey, here we are discussing his 4th film, and I think that goes to thanks to the director and co-writer of this film. Starting off with my positives, Taika Waititi. I am such a fan of his work. Hunt of the Wilder People, What They Do in the Shadows, Thor Ragnarok, and of course my personal favorite is Jojo Rabbit. He has an energy to his films. He has a lot of heart to his films. They're a lot of fun, and those words perfectly describe this film. I thought the direction as well as the co-writing that he did in this film was just so well balanced for the most part. We'll get into my negatives a little bit later, but his direction to me, the way I would describe Taika in this film in particular, it does have a lot of Thor Ragnarok vibes in the color palette, the style, the rock and roll 80s stuff going on, but it is a throwback Saturday morning Flash Gordon type of energy that's within this film that it just made me have fun. You know, it's fun to be in these type of films, especially when it comes to the Thor world and being in, you know, Asgard, different planets, different characters. Fun is a perfect way to describe this film, and I think that goes to part to the direction that Taika brings. But you can have all the fun in the world, but is there heart there? And I think there is, because I think his writing sensibilities with the Jane Foster story that we have here, the Gorr storyline, all the people that Thor has lost, and all the various other characters that are going through an emotional journey, Taika's doing his thing. He is doing his thing in this film, and I really applaud his direction and his writing in this film. But going back to his direction, he's directing some incredible actors in this film, and I want to start off with the performances here, talking about the lead of the film, the Thor, the Odin's son, you know, Chris Hemsworth, who I personally want to put on record. As far as his solo outings go, I think that this is his best performance. I think he has given us, of course, the badass moments, the hero moments. Chris Hemsworth's comedic timing is absolutely incredible. He's very funny in this film, but more importantly, putting aside Infinity War, which I thought had like the most emotional moments with Thor, this is second to me. I thought the emotions and the range that Chris Hemsworth gives in this performance was fantastic. Again, if you've seen Thor, you know he's lost, and this isn't a spoiler if you've seen the films, he's lost a lot. Father, mother, brother, his hammer, his brother, you know, as I mentioned, Loki several times. He has a lot of loss, and you see the reflection of how Chris Hemsworth and Thor kind of uses that loss and kind of uses it in as far as like the way he interacts with people, the jokes that he kind of puts into positions where he's maybe upset or nervous. I think Chris Hemsworth has given us a lot in this role, and again, I think this is probably his best performance in any of the Thor films. Translating that to your hero is great, but what about the villain? Christian Bale is bringing his A game in this role. Now, I do have some issues with the Gorr character that I'll talk about later, but I think Christian Bale gave me more than what some of the script did. And again, we'll save that for later. But Christian Bale, I know some people have him like automatically top 5. He's not in that bracket for me. He's top 10 MCU villains, but it's the performance that Christian gives that really kind of elevates the role for me. Because again, without getting too much into the minutia of what's going on, there is a lot of comparisons with Gorr, and we'll talk about Jane here in a bit, but what happens when hate drives you, when pain drives you, and you're set on this path of destruction, chaos. That's what Christian's doing. He's menacing, but he's more importantly, you can sympathize. You understand his motives, which I really appreciate about a good villain. So Christian Bale, fantastic. Again, I have some criticisms that I'll talk about with Gorr, but for the most part, you can't deny Christian Bale's performance. But the person that really surprised me in this film, which it shouldn't be a surprise because she's a fantastic actress, but Natalie Portman's brought back into the franchise. We haven't seen her since Thor, The Dark World, and you can tell she was kind of phoning in just because you can tell she wasn't connected to the character. But Jane Foster in this film, to me, this makes up for all the previous appearances in the MCU. She's never been better in the MCU. Now, of course, Natalie Portman, Academy Award-winning actress, she's fantastic, but this is the best performance we've seen her in the role. She's fun. She's having a good time. She's kicking a lot of ass as Mighty Thor. But again, going back to what I talked about with the other two characters, it's the emotional beat. It's the heartbeat. It's the emotion. It's the journey that she's going on. I don't want to give too much away about what she's going through in the film, but if you all have read a particular run of Thor comics, you can probably assume what she's going through in the film, and that stuff to me really sucked the landing, and I just applaud Natalie Portman and Taika bringing her back and really giving her character a lot to do in this film, which really was a lot of standout moments for me. So the performances were there. We're talking Marvel, so you got to talk about the action. There is a particular action sequence in kind of the middle half of the second part of the film that takes place on a particular, if you've seen the trailer, there's a black and white sequence that takes place in the Shadow Realm. One of, not the best, but it is one of my favorite action sequences, not just within Phase 4, but of the MCU. And when you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like kind of it's all in black and white. There's no color. It's like a stop motion, Beetlejuice, Kubo and the two strings type of action sequence that I thought was just jaw dropping. So the action's on point. And when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, without giving too much away, I did not expect something to appear in this film that blew my socks off. So for my Marvel fans, there is something that they bring to this film that definitely opens up the realm of possibilities. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Of course, you all know when it comes to post-credit scenes, you always got to stick around. I won't say what they are, but there are two in the films, and the first one is very exciting for many different reasons, and the second one is also very exciting, so definitely stick around in your seat. You all should know that by now. But wrapping up just kind of my positives, this is a classic Thor adventure Saturday morning Flash Gordon cartoon. It has heart. The themes of love overcoming, which is something we've seen 1,000 times, but is when it sticks to landing that really works and resonates with me. It's the themes of fighting for what you love for, living in the moment, and just allowing yourself to grow. So I really applaud the themes that Taika brought to this role. But let's talk about some of my criticisms. Now, we all know when it comes to Taika films, and like I said, I'm a fan, but sometimes Taika, when you're eating your dish and some people put a little bit too much flavoring on there, and I'm referring to the comedy that Taika, sprinkles throughout his film. The comedy works, but there's a bit of an imbalance for me, and I thought that, Thor Ragnarok, which I'll talk about my rankings, I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok, and I thought that film had a little bit of a better balance in the comedy department, because when it comes to comedy, it's always good to have, the funny man who's Thor, Korg, you have these funny characters, Valkyrie's having jokes, Natalie Portman's having jokes, but when you have everyone else kind of bouncing those jokes off of and they're being funny as well, the balancing to me kind of throws it off, and it's just everyone's having a moment to be funny. It doesn't always work for me. So I do think there was points in films where it was just a little bit too comedic, too funny, and a little bit goofy and silly at points for my personal taste. And a thing that kind of takes away from those jokes are some of the lack of development of characters. I mentioned Gorr earlier, who, again, I applauded the performance of Christian Bale, but I wanted more from Christian. And this film comes in at 2 hours, which I think there's another 15 to 20 minutes that I thought would have been perfectly placed to be added in this film to really flesh out the pain and the motivations. Like, again, I said that Christian Bale gave me more than what he was given. I felt where he was coming from, but I would have loved to have seen more of that development from the character to what he is going on in this mission in this film. Also, I think of Natalie Portman and Valkyrie's relationship, which Valkyrie, great performance by Tessa Thompson. I wanted more from her, but more in particular the relationships that she develops within Jane Foster. So there is some moments where the film's moving at a breakneck, a fast pace. We're getting straight to the points, but I wish we would have spent more time with Gorr and his backstory and his motivations to, flesh out more of that relationship with Valkyrie and Jane Foster. So I wish there was a little bit, like I said, 15, 20 more minutes would have really ironed out all the details. Your boy is a Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I love the Guardians, Volume 1, Volume 2, but I'm going to be honest with you all, they were pointless in this movie. There is something that Peter gives Thor as far as motivation that I understand why they put them in the film, but honestly, as a fan of Guardians, I thought you could have went without them in the film. And I won't say how much they're in the movie, but I just feel like their inclusion couldn't have been left out. And that sucks because, again, I'm a Guardians fan, but I thought that they were kind of pointless within this movie. So last thing I want to mention again is, so there is Thor and his maturity level has been kind of inconsistent within the MCU, and I think there are moments in this film where he is maturing up, and there's a moment where he has to become mature. But I am hoping that, you know, if there are more stories to be told with Thor, that they really kind of give us a different, you know, we've seen the more serious side in Thor 1 and kind of a balance of serious, kind of silly in Thor 2. And then obviously as the Avengers went on, he's become more of the Thor that we see now. But I hope that they can, because there are moments where, again, I feel like Thor hasn't really regressed and progressed to a more mature God level, you know, leader of the potentially the Avengers at some point in time. So I hope that they mature him up, because there are a lot of moments where it's like, Thor, come on, man, can you be a little bit more serious in the moment? So those are my main pros, my main cons. Before we get into my score, if you should see it and where this film ranks for me, if you stuck around to this point in the review, I appreciate you all, and I want to take the moment to give our time to the sponsor of this video. Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM is a clothing company with a variety of amazing products such as t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, shorts and underwear, headwear, and much more. Their t-shirts have unique designs, they're incredibly soft and extremely comfortable, and they're made to last. But the best part is, you can get 10% off by using my discount code MovieFiles when you're selecting your new gear, which you can find that code in the description below. If you all like what I'm wearing here, and so many more great things to choose from Into the AM, so definitely check them out. But giving you all my overall thoughts, at the end of the day, this is a fun Thor classic adventure. It has some good laughs, some good adventures, some good action, some great performances, a lot of heart. There are some moments where I wish we could have developed things out more, fleshed the world out a little bit more, flesh out the characters and relationship. But overall, I enjoyed this film. It's a fun time. I'm at my first viewing as I'm recording this. I'm going to give Thor Love and Thunder a 3.8 out of 5. That number might go up a little bit more the second time, the third viewing, and probably a watch along that we'll do in the future for this channel. But I'm at a 3.8 out of 5 for this film. When it comes to rankings, I personally have this film as my second favorite Thor film within this franchise. I do have Thor Ragnarok above this film. It's just more balanced to me, and I just enjoy that film more. And as far as MCUs go, as far as the 28 other films, it's right now at my 15th slot. I'm going to put my letterbox rankings on the screen now so you can see where it places. So there you have it, my pros, my cons, my rankings, and my score. Let me know your thoughts on all that again once you've seen the film. Where do you rank the film? What do you think about those post-credit scenes? And let's have those discussions in the comments. Again, thank you for the sponsoring this video, Into the AM. Thank you, more importantly, for watching this video. Before you leave, make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell with your hammers out there. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Thank you again. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.